Hey, Dena here. So we just recently-ish found out that Red Dwarf has been renewed for 2 more seasons. So I thought I'd do a Red Dwarf vlog in the vein of my My Little Pony vlog and cover all 91 episodes leading up to the new ones. But Dena, I hear you ask, what does this mean for Red Dwarf? And what is this Red Dwarf thing you keep posting all over your Facebook anyway? Well, bear with me and I'll get to that. Whereas My Little Pony already has a built-in audience, you either love ponies or you don't, I just kind of dove right into that series. Red Dwarf is a little more obscure, at least in the US. In the UK, from what I understand, it's a beloved classic, but in America it has more of a cult following, so I figured an introduction of sorts was in order. What I like most about Red Dwarf is that it's unique, at least to me. It's a sci-fi comedy with kind of a sliding scale between those two genres, with the earliest episodes feeling more like a sitcom set in space with sci-fi elements, and the later ones being more like a sci-fi adventure comedy, retaining the comedy of course, but being a lot heavier on the sci-fi elements. What I find unique about this is that just about any other show I can think of that could be labeled as a sci-fi comedy is more like a fish out of water story where an alien, half-alien, or robot is living with a family on Earth. They all have to learn how to get along somehow, and hilarity ensues. Mork and Mindy and Alf immediately spring to mind. Red Dwarf to me feels more like if Star Trek was reimagined as a low-budget British comedy with a small cast and no aliens, if that makes any sense. It's one of those shows that barely manages to hang on, and yet somehow manages to still be around nearly 30 years after it started. Sometimes with several years in between seasons. I mean, we're only up to season 10 so far, so do the math. It's low budget, and the cast and crew go through hell to make everything come together. And yet the final product is some of the best TV I've ever watched. This is why Red Dwarf being renewed for not only 1 but 2 seasons right now is such a big deal. But anyway, if I go on too long, I won't have anything left to talk about once I get to the actual vlogs. I just wanted to give you a general idea of what you're in for before getting to the pilot episode. Those of you who have never seen Red Dwarf, I hope I inspire you to give it a shot. For those who have, I hope you enjoy re-experiencing it with me. Welcome to the Red Dwarf pilot, ironically titled The End. It's actually kind of an appropriate title, as you'll find out. The show was named after the continent-sized ship where the entire first season takes place. This is one of the main reasons I tend to compare it to Star Trek, although the Red Dwarf really doesn't have that much in common with the Enterprise. Firstly, it's a mining ship. Secondly, it looks very lived in. It's kind of dingy and, well, flawed. It's almost a character itself in a way. But yeah, this is a very different future than what Gene Roddenberry envisioned.
Lister, shut up! I'm only humming. Well, don't!
We're introduced to our 2 main characters, Arnold Rimmer and Dave Lister. Lister holds the lowest rank on the ship of 3rd Technician, which basically means that he helps fix the chicken soup machine. Rimmer's is only slightly higher, but don't tell him that. Obviously, these two do not get along. In fact, they're practically opposites.
Lister, the 3rd Technician, offense, obstructing a superior technician by humming, clicking, and being quiet.
Rimmer and his reports. That's going to be quite the running gag. Speaking of running gags, the show is oddly consistent about Lister mentioning one of his buddies, Olaf Peterson, all the way up to season 10, so I'm going to keep a running tally of how many times his name comes up.
That's a total lie.
No, it's not. Peterson told me.
No, it's not. Peterson told me.
I try and respect Rimmer and everything, but it's not easy because he's such a smeghead.
Aw, it's the first smeghead of the series. According to Wikipedia, the writers deny that it refers to smegma. Not sure if I buy that.
Oh, Rimmer! You are a snakehead.
So a member of the crew, George McIntyre, has died, and his very respectful funeral takes place.
This is a piece of music he specially requested. Start the tape, please, Holly.
I'll see you later again.
That's actually a different song than the one that was on the Netflix version. I guess they couldn't get the rights to this one, so they went with something that was public domain. Unfortunately, I thought the other one was funnier, and now I can't find it. Bummer. I still get a kick out of that one guy in the back who's bopping. Meanwhile, Lister has been saving up to move to Fiji. That's going to become important later.
Yes, because they had a volcanic eruption and now most of Fiji's 3 feet below sea level.
That's why the animals are going to have to be quite tall.
So at George McIntyre's reception, we find out that he's been brought back as a hologram, which is somewhat common practice for high-ranking crew members. Basically, he retains all his memories and personality from when he was alive, but he has an H on his forehead and is incorporeal. A person could pass through him, but it's considered rude to do that. Also, the ship's computer can only sustain one hologram at a time. All this is setting up something pretty important to the series.
I don't want you to think of me as someone who's dead. More as someone who's no longer a threat to your marriages. I think Joe knows what I'm talking about.
Gotta love McIntyre. His backstory was pretty dark in the novel, Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers. He had gotten in trouble with the Mafia and he committed suicide to get away from them. As I recall, he was quite happy to be a hologram since it was a huge weight being lifted off of him. So Rimmer is about to take an engineer's exam, but he's a really bad test taker, so he tries to cheat by writing all the answers all over him. Unless he was going to take the test in his underwear, I'm not sure how that was going to work, but whatever. Meanwhile, notice that Lister falls asleep with a cigarette ready next to him so he can light up as soon as he wakes up. After Rimmer leaves, Lister reveals that he's been keeping a beautiful black cat named Frankenstein, which is against the rules. Again, this is important later.
Hey, do you want to see me picture the Fiji again, Frank?
Rimmer's gray jumpsuit with the different colored markers in the pockets reminds me of Commander Mark from The Secret City. Anyone else watch that when they were a kid? Probably not. Anyway. Things go badly and Rimmer has one spectacular meltdown. So Lister is called in to see Captain Hollister.
Now, I'm gonna ask you again. Do you have a cat?
No.
Have you got a cat?
Nice. He's given the choice of either handing over the cat to be destroyed and dissected or be put in stasis for 18 months.
So with respect, sir, what's in it for the cat?
He picks stasis. In the book, Lister actually knew what he was doing. He hated being on Red Dwarf and wanted to go into stasis so it would be over in an instant from his point of view. Basically speeding up his plan to retire to Fiji. So he got the cat and let himself get caught. I personally prefer the idea that he really was that stupid and that he chose stasis to save Frankenstein, and I assume that was the case until I listened to the audiobook. We do see him wearing a Hawaiian shirt when he goes into stasis though, so I guess it could go either way. When Lister is let out of stasis by the ship's computer, Holly, he finds out that the rest of the crew is dead, leading to one of the best overly long gags ever.
Is everybody home?
They're dead, Dave.
Who is?
Everybody, Dave.
Well, Selby.
They're all dead. Everybody's dead, Dave.
Rimmer.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Wait. Are you trying to tell me everybody's dead?
I should have never let him out in the first place.
Also, I feel the need to point out the 2001 reference with the computer being named Holly, which sounds like Hal, being soft-spoken and talking to someone he calls Dave. It turns out that a drive plate wasn't sealed properly, by Rimmer naturally, and it resulted in radiation flooding the ship and reducing everyone to piles of dust.
What is this stuff?
That is catering officer Olaf Peterson.
I've been eating half the crew.
How long was I in stasis?
3 million years.
3 million years! I've still got that library book.
And now Rimmer is a hologram.
Do you mind? Never again will I be able to brush a rose against my cheek, cradle a laughing child, or interfere with a woman sexually.
Interfere with a woman sexually. I don't think I've ever heard it put that way before.
You're on report, Squire. I can't write it down. I'll remember it.
Aww. Okay, we're about to meet our final main character of the first 2 seasons, and my favorite. In fact, I love him so much I'm planning on making a separate video about just him and his role in the show. So I'm gonna have an interesting time perpetually biting my tongue and not pointing out every cute little thing he does.
Uh-oh. Better make myself look big.
Naturally, I have to leave some things in.
During the radioactive crisis, Dave, your cat and her kittens were safely sealed in the hold. And they've been breeding there for 3 million years. Well, you know how mankind evolved from apes?
Yeah, I know that.
He evolved from cats. His ancestors were cats. He's descended from cats. He is a cat.
So he doesn't have a name, but Lister tries to communicate.
Hello? Cat?
And it just sticks. He is referred to as Cat or the Cat for the rest of the series. Meanwhile, Rimmer momentarily forgets that he's a hologram and makes an ass out of himself, and that kind of breaks the ice.
But where are all the other little kitties? Are they gone? Are they dead? Have they left yet?
Who cares? I want it off the ship.
What are you gonna do, chuck him out the airlock? Actually, yeah, Rimmer would probably do that.
The Holy Mother, saved by Cloister the Stupid. It's me, it's Lister. It's Lister the Stupid.
Who shall returneth to lead us to Fushal, the promised land.
No, it's not Fushal, it's Fiji. That's where we're going. Holly, plot a course for Fiji. Look out, eh? The slime's coming home.
And so ends the end. So that was my take on the Red Dwarf pilot. It does its job well with introducing us to the four main characters, even if my favorite doesn't show up until 5 minutes before the end. I can't help but wonder if there was anyone who watched this show for the first time, not knowing that nearly all of the characters we saw wandering around the ship would be dead 2/3 into the episode, and what their reaction was when that happened. It's really kind of dark, isn't it? Even the scene where Lister discovers this, while mostly being played for laughs, definitely has sad and dark undertones. The first episode of this series marks the end of Lister's life as he knew it, and possibly the end of humanity. Again, pretty dark, and that's why I think the title to this episode is appropriate. Really, Lister loses everything. His friends, his love interest, and his plans for retiring to Fiji are blown. Although it takes a while for that to really sink in. This is not my favorite episode. I feel the series doesn't really start to pick up until season 3, but it's a great pilot with a lot of hilarious moments in it. Next up is Future Echoes. See you then.
Well, she won't be much use to you on Fiji now. Not unless it snows and you need something to grit the path with.